Good evening, guys. So we are about to go live with The Road Chose Me, Dan Grec. And we're going to be asking you some questions about overlanding. And then we're going to get into it and just discover what he's done and how he's done it and what made him want to do this. So here we go. Good evening, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. How's the weather out there in Canada?
It's actually winter's coming. It snowed a bunch like last week, but it just rained again last night, so the snow level's kind of gone up really high.
Well, we're in summer now in Cape Town, so we're getting perfect weather. We're getting waves. But with lockdown now, we're a bit restricted to our camping, so we're hoping to do the most of it.
Yeah, we've just gone back into lockdown as well. Like it kind of let up for a while, and now it's come back again. So everyone's like, "Oh, there's not much we can do about it. We just have to put up with it, I guess."
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. Listen, thank you very much for accepting the interview. We basically want to pick your brain as to how you got into the overlanding, what made you do it, and what were the difficulties you faced.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really happy always to help other people because I always say like I'm just an average guy. I don't work for National Geographic. I'm not rich. I just kind of had a dream and went for it. And so I want to help other people do the same thing as well.
Exactly, and that's the culture that we're trying to create because for too long it has been thought of that overlanding and traveling is only for guys that have a couple of $100,000 or rands in the bank. Whereas if we need to make it obtainable to the average guy that just wants to get out there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And way back in the day when I was like 22, I read Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman's book Long Way
Yes,
Round.
long way down.
Yeah, long way round and then long way down.
Yeah,
And
down.
like
Yeah.
so inspirational. I loved it. But I remember when I got to the end of the book, I said, "Oh, too bad. I can never do something like that. I'm not an international superstar. So, oh well, bad luck." And I kind of forgot about it for 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like I said, that's what we need to like educate people that that's not actually true. You don't have to be a superstar to do it.
Yeah, and that's the thing because in our society today, overlanding and that has become like an elitist thing. It's been mostly for your guys that have sick rides and 100,000 or a 1 million rand or $100,000 vehicles. Whereas I feel with what I've been doing research and what I've been seeing that, like you, and when I watched your videos, and that's what intrigued me about you, the way you broke it down is that a guy on a budget could actually do this. In one of your videos, you spoke about $50 a day, and that's an attainable goal.
Totally, yeah. And I bumped into tons of people driving around the world who really are doing it on a budget and they're just ordinary folks. They're school teachers, they're welders, they're mechanics, whatever is their day job back at home. And they
Mm,
just save and save and save for years and years. And then, they're like, I've been dreaming of doing this for 5 years and I made it happen. And then,
exactly.
yeah, they're not rich, and they're saying, they're saying we have to be careful with our money. We can't just kind of, go and stay in fancy hotels and buy every meal. Otherwise, we'll run
Hmm.
out of money too soon. But if we're careful, we can tour a whole bunch of Africa in the next 12 months. Yeah.
Exactly. And you don't have to be the big problem is you shouldn't be too careful because if you're too careful, you're gonna hold yourself back. But I've got some questions for you. So one of the questions is what made you get into overlanding and how long are you doing and what was the big factor that said to you, Dan, I need to travel. I need to get out and I need to see the world.
So it's a long story, but I grew up in Australia and moved over to Canada because I love the mountains and exploring. And I got a job. I was working as an engineer just in a city here in Canada. And I was only 24 or 5 at the time, but I was
Hmm.
working with a bunch of people who were in their 50s and 60s. And kind of day after day, I realized this is my life now. Like I
Yeah.
could just flip on the autopilot switch, and before I know it, I'll be 60. And life's pretty easy. You just go to work every day,
Yeah.
and money comes in, money goes out. The connections
Dan, are you there? Sorry,
dropping.
I lost you. Yeah.
Oh, yep,
There we go.
I'm back
You back.
now. Yep. Yeah, and so I,
Yeah.
I was sitting at a desk and I kind of had this moment where I thought, I need to get out of here. I need to like make life more exciting.
Mm,
And I'd always wanted to see Alaska, and it's pretty close here to Canada. So I packed up my little 4-wheel drive that I had, and I said, I'm going to go travel Alaska for the summer and just live in a little ground tent, you know, and go hiking and go camping and see bears and glaciers. And I did, and I loved it. And I was like, oh my God.
And what you're saying there is something I said to someone a while ago, that for me, the scariest thing to be in is a comfort zone. Because when you're in a comfort zone, you hold yourself back from actually stepping out and doing more than what you think you're capable of.
I agree so much. And it's funny, I can even feel it now. You know, I've been back from Africa nearly 2 years. And yeah, it's really comfortable here. It would be really easy to just sort of sit here and relax, because life's pretty easy. You know, there's a supermarket not far away, and like electricity's great, internet's great. You're like, oh, the couch is pretty comfortable.
Yeah, why leave?
Yeah, it's a risk.
Yeah. So the next question I want to ask you, where have you all been, so that the viewers can understand how much you've driven and how much kilometers or mileage or miles, like you Americans or Canadians would say? How far have you driven, and what is your trips all entail?
For sure, yeah. So that first trip, I drove up to the very top of Alaska. So I put my feet in the Arctic Ocean, and then I turned around and I drove all the way south through all of the United States, all of Central America, and all of South America. And so I drove all the way to the bottom, and I put my feet in the Southern Ocean down there.
Wow.
So I drove through 17 countries on that trip, and I drove...
How long was that?
That took 2 years, and it was 64,000 kilometers through 17 countries.
64,000 kilometers.
And that really like changed my life, because Central America especially, it's cheap. You could easily do the trip for like $15 or $20 a day for all expenses. And you're hiking every day. Oh yeah, you can be surfing, you can like poke lava with a stick, you can see sloths, you can like eat street tacos for 5 cents each. Like, beer is so cheap, it's dangerous. Like,
that's dangerous.
And so suddenly I had all these life experiences and all this beautiful, beautiful nature, and I was like, wow, I want to do more of this. I became so addicted. So that was the first trip, and then I came back to Canada, and I knew I wanted to go again, and so that means I need a savings account. So I went back to an engineering job, which hurt, but at the same time was like, it's worth it because I know what the payoff is. And so I worked for 5 years to just save every single cent I could. Like, I didn't have a cell phone. I walked to work. I didn't have a TV. I just was saving money, and then quit that job and shipped my big Jeep over to Africa. Well, I shipped it to Europe actually, and caught a ferry to Morocco. And then over the course of 3 years, I drove from Morocco down the west coast to Cape Town, and then all the way back up the east coast to Egypt. So I went all the way around the continent.
So you have been to Cape Town.
Oh yeah. I spent a week and a half in Cape Town. I loved it.
Yeah, Cape Town's amazing. South Africa's amazing.
And, you know, I realized it was a once in a lifetime. And so I went, you know, out of the way places. I dipped into Burundi for a month. I went down into Djibouti. You know, I crossed a little section of the Congo, which was the craziest adventure of my whole life. So I decided, you know, I've got the time right now. I have this vehicle. I've saved all this money. I want to have these life experiences. And who knows if I'll ever get the chance again. So I went for it.
Yeah. And how safe did you find Africa as a foreigner driving in Africa? How safe was it for you?
I found it very safe. I found, you know, locals were extremely friendly and accommodating. And I guess there's a few sections or a few countries where, you know, I sort of, the hair on the back of my neck stood up, like in Nigeria, a little bit of the Congo. The military there are a bit kind of aggressive. But overall, I never heard a gunshot in 3 years in Africa.
Really?
Nobody ever threatened me. Nobody even said anything like, or else. You know, there was a few tense times where the guys were sort of trying to extort money out of me, but I always managed to flip it around and like make them laugh or distract them with a map or something. And so, yeah, overall, I felt really, really safe, and I loved it.
Okay. And do you have any trips planned in the future? And if you do, where are you going?
I mean, everything.
I know we've all got this dream. My dream is to drive from Cape Town to Thailand and ship my vehicle over to Australia. That is my dream drive. You know, I'd love to do it.
Amazing. And do you know the Bell family, Graham?
Yes,
Bell?
I was chatting to Graham before I phoned you. Me and Graham's in constant contact, so we were chatting this afternoon, and we're always dropping each other a message. And I know Graham's done it. Graham's driven to Thailand and shipped it to Australia. And I followed it religiously. And in the last 3 months, myself and Graham became friends. I'm actually interviewing Graham next week. And
Oh, that's
Louisa.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're on the road right now. They're going to drive
They're,
from Cape
they're in
Town.
Mozambique now, right? Today they're
Yeah.
in Mozambique. Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to go all the way up and then all the way across to Russia is their plan right now. It's
That is
awesome.
like ultimate. It's ultimate dream. And the thing also, like, for Graham to do something like that and to do it with a family is such a big leap, because most people, when you look at their overlanding, they're either retired people or they're single couples. But to see a family go out into the world is really breathtaking to see the way they've worked it out to be able to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And I love to, again, he's just showing what's possible. Because, again, they're just ordinary people with this
They're
big dream.
ordinary people.
And they're
They're
like,
ordinary
we're gonna make it happen. Yeah,
Yeah,
I love it.
the only people that just taking the plunge. But one question I want to ask you: when you leave home for your travels, what is the one gadget that you cannot leave home without?
These days, it's definitely become my laptop. Because my family's in Australia and I've got a bunch of friends here in Canada. And so my laptop really is like how I stay in touch with my friends and my family. So I can video chat like this, or emails, or see photos of my little nephews growing up. So yeah, for me, my laptop is like my whole connection to the world.
So that is the one thing that you would definitely want to take. Where is your dream overlanding trip? Where, if you could choose anywhere right now that you would drive, if money wasn't an object and responsibility was an object, where would you drive?
I am becoming obsessed with kind of Central Asia. So like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Mongolia, Northern India, Nepal, kind of all around the Himalayas in the mountains. Seeing some of the roads that are there, the old Silk Road, and you can just see these epic mountains. You can reach out and touch them. Yeah, I feel like I'll get there at some point in my life, but with COVID right now, I have no idea how possible it is.
We've got a local program here called Footspur, and they drove around India the beginning of the year. And to see them driving over the Himalayas and to see them driving through India, for example, was absolutely breathtaking. The views and the people and the culture was amazing.
Oh, amazing.
But I need to. The next thing is, if you went and you didn't have the Jeep, what vehicle would be your choice of vehicle?
It's always...
I know you're a Jeep guy, but I just wanted to know what would be your ultimate vehicle if you could choose an ultimate vehicle.
I feel like the ultimate vehicle question, it always kind of makes me feel a bit strange because, I could sit here and dream about some like $500,000 kind of camperized truck thing, but I don't really enjoy doing that because it's just impossible. It just isn't real for me. So there's no point sort of spending time or energy on it. So for me, like my dream vehicle is like the one that I can afford and the one that will actually get me on adventures. So maybe, in the interest of saving money, maybe I'm going to fly to Mongolia and just buy whatever the locals are driving, like, I don't know, a Russian Lada or something, throw a tent in the back of it and just go for it. And it'll probably break down twice a week, but then the locals will probably know how to fix it because it's a local thing. So
No, I'm listening.
So for me, the dream vehicle is like the one that enables the adventure. And probably it's the cheaper one because I don't have enough money to have an expensive vehicle and still be able to afford to put gas in the tank. So I have to compromise and say, I'll go for a simpler, older vehicle, probably get something used, and then I can still go and have adventures.
Look, South Africa's got a large growing community of people that's overlanding, and people that's traveling. If you could give people that are newly getting into overlanding any forms of tips that would help them, but I'm talking about your basic tips. I'm not talking about safety tips. We're going to get into that. What I'm talking about is what are the things you can say to someone getting into overlanding that would normally be held back by a no knowledge of overlanding?
Yeah, I feel like the biggest tip that I learned kind of almost like accidentally is don't try to like aim for too much. Don't sort of, especially if you're in South Africa, don't think to yourself like, oh, I'm going to build this epic vehicle and I'm going to drive all the way to Ethiopia and that'll be my first trip. It's like, that's really intimidating and scary. And it's hard to know, like, what do I need? And like, So my advice is just like keep it smaller, aim simpler than that, and say, you know what, I'm just going to go on a weekend trip and see how that goes, and then maybe you can
And
go on a long trip, and then maybe a 2 week trip, and every one of those trips you're going to learn more about your gear, you're going to learn more about the kind of trip you enjoy, and maybe you're a person who loves sitting in the shade reading a book,
mm,
and so that's what you're going to do while you're on your trip. Or maybe you're a person who loves mountain biking and you realize the trip isn't much fun unless you take your mountain bike. So then you
mm,
need to figure out a way to do that. So I feel like it's learning what works for you and what makes you happy. And like
mm.
slowly over time, you can build up and eventually do the epic trip to Ethiopia.
And
But I think
I think that's a very valid point. That's a very valid point that you have there. Because what we see here is guys go and they buy a 2 million rand vehicle, in your currency, $150,000 vehicle. They kit it out fully, and then they just want to drive from here to Kenya, And what happens on the way to Kenya? Do you have a hobby? Do you love photography? Do you want to do something? And I think that's very important that you're saying, do weekends away, discover what you love in nature. And when you travel, explore that.
that's right. Yeah. And I think it really influences your vehicle as well because, some people love to cook and they kind of enjoy saving money that way. And so they have like a good kitchen set up in their vehicle.
Hmm.
But I've also met people on the road who just couldn't care less about cooking. They're perfectly happy to eat like a papaya for dinner and they're happy. So they don't have a fridge. They don't have any food storage because they don't care. They don't want that stuff. And they just like wander street markets and eat whatever locals are eating. So I feel like it helps you enjoy the trip, but it also influences what you need to bring and how much you need to spend and what kind of vehicle you're going to wind up with. So it's all sort of like a gradual, achievable learning process instead of aiming for like the enormous, sort of scary, like big result.
Tommy, and also the next question that I have to move on to, in terms of safety, when traveling and overlanding, especially you were traveling alone, what safety concerns or safety advice or things have you picked up along the way that, a lot of us going into overlanding for the first time, we're very negligent towards the safety aspect of it also. Is there anything that you can tell the viewers?
Yeah, I would say that the number one thing that lots of people who are driving around the world do is try never to drive in the dark, like ever.
Mm,
The risks on the road are so much higher with like animals and just people walking that you can't see and potholes and all that kind of stuff. But also kind of like the world is just a bit more scary in the dark.
mm,
You just sort of assume that people are out to get you or whatever. So for me, I try really hard to be off the road at about 3 or 4 o'clock at the latest because then you're at camp, you can put your feet up and you can
mm.
actually relax and that'll kind of help you, have enjoyment as the days roll on. And then for safety, I think it's really about like keeping your eyes open and talking to locals and talking to other people. And especially in Southern Africa there's such a huge community of people who are roaming around, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, like all of those
Mm.
areas you want to go to. And you can talk to them. You get on what's the forum SA 4x4 community.
Yes,
Like
yes, yes. 4x4 community.
so many people on there who are going to be able to give you real world, like, oh yeah, we were just in this region and we had an amazing time. Or you
Mm,
might get the like, well, northern Mozambique is a little bit touchy again. You might be
mm,
best to avoid it. And so it's
mm.
really about like kind of staying current with information about the
We
area you
we
go
did
to.
that. We were up in the garden route in January, and I went on TripAdvisor, and I was googling a place called Lutsi Beach, and it's a beautiful beach. It's this old beach. It's got castles on the beach, at the ocean. But all the advisory was, don't go there alone. There's a lot of guys. Don't go there at night. So we went, but because it was me, my wife, and my kids, we didn't go down to the beach. And that's what really helped, was going on those forums and picking up that advice. I mean, we would have gone in blindly into a dangerous area without knowing.
That's right. And not only the forums, I find super valuable to actually talk to people face to face. And
Mm.
overlanding's so good like that because when you're in a campground, you bump into people who they're
Yeah,
coming from where you're about to go and you've just been where they're going. So you
yeah,
have like a vested interest in being friends. So it's like,
yeah,
oh, let's pull out some maps and have a cold drink, and before you know it, you're
yeah.
best friends and you got so much to share.
Exactly. I've met so many people like that. The other thing I want to ask you is, for guys getting into, like I asked you, what is the mods that they should do? And you were saying that is the vehicle. But what is the essential items that guys should carry with them? Like overlanding for, let's say, a period of over 2 weeks or over a month. What is essential items that should be carried with you?
Yeah, I think it's really hard because it
No, no, but
depends.
do you agree with satellite phones and all of that, or
I
what?
I'm kind of a bit strange like that. I personally don't carry a satellite phone because something I learned, especially when you're in remote Africa, it's like there's no one you can call that's going to help. The
That's
people
a
that are
very
going to
good
help
point.
you, they're actually close to you. You know, they're within 50 or 100 kilometers. They're locals, and they are the people. When I ran out of gas in Zambia, it was local people that helped me. You know, when I rolled my Jeep in Uganda, local people helped me. And so
Mm,
for me, like satellite phone is kind of a weird one. But certainly, like if it makes someone feel more comfortable or it, you know, gives them the confidence, then yeah, if that's something they want, I think it's worth having. But you know, so many of the vehicles we can buy today, they're so capable, they'll take us anywhere we want to go. So again,
mm,
I don't recommend like, you know, go and get new tires and go and get new suspension and go and get all this stuff. No, 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 no. Just take the vehicle as it is. You know, you need somewhere to sleep. You probably need some food and a stove, but you know, whatever camping gear you've already got, and go out and have a trip and see what you think and learn and discover and, you know, practice.
mm.
And if you do find yourself doing a lot of really rough roads, then yeah, you'll probably realize, okay, I could upgrade to quality tires or I could upgrade my suspension, you know, to handle the bad roads. But that'll come later after you've started learning and having your adventures.
And that's the thing. This has become such a multi-billion or million or billion-dollar industry that the media, in terms of four-wheel drive and overlanding, has brainwashed so many people into thinking the day you buy a van, you need to get a winch, you need to get this type of tires, you need to get this type of bumper, you need these things in able to actually to enjoy this vehicle to what it can do. When, like you're saying, you could buy this vehicle and literally travel somewhere without adding anything on. And the things that you add on should be purpose driven as opposed to aesthetics. Um,
Exactly right. Yeah.
yeah, and the way the industry is being built. The last question I have for you, I'm not going to keep you too long. I think we're talking for 20 minutes already. What is your most memorable memory during your travels of overlanding?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. You know, I get caught up in the gear as well, and I get caught up in nature, but no doubt about it, it's the friendly people that I've met along the way. There are so many times that I like drove into a village and it's kind of dusk and I'm a little bit intimidated, and locals would just come straight up to me and say, "Hello, you are welcome. You can camp right here. Yes, no problem." And just that feeling of being welcome and being safe in their village is
Mm,
so phenomenal. And because you kind of, you know, you're out there, you're alone, and
yeah.
just the way people treated me all over Africa and all over Latin America, they just shake my hand and say hello. It's nice to meet you, and it's just like person to person. I really
Mm.
love that.
I think the first world media and the first world has painted such a negative picture of countries like Latin America and Africa and continents like Africa, um, that people have this negative idea that when they come here, their lives are in danger. And as a South African, and I haven't traveled extensively enough, but traveled, we've never had any issues. We're actually safer traveling than we are in our own environment. And it's weird. It's just weird as a local to experience that.
Yeah, and I've experienced this so much in Africa where the media does such a good job of like focusing in on all the bad stories from around the
Mm,
continent. And
mm,
it's such an enormous continent. It's like there's always going to be a flood somewhere. There's always going to be a wildfire somewhere. Like that's to be expected. But when the media only tells us that for like decade after decade, everyone just starts to assume that's all there is. So
yeah.
especially here in North America, tons of people assumed that all of Africa is like a war zone, and I was doing something really stupid. I'm like, no, 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 no. Like there are little bits that are war zones, yes, but the vast majority of it, extremely kind, happy, friendly people.
Mm. Exactly. But Dan, I'm not going to keep you up. I know you've got to go. I think, what is it, 10 a.m. there, 10:30 a.m.?
That's right. Yep, in the morning.
Yeah, it's now 20 past 8 the evening here in Cape Town. I just want to say thank you, but there's one thing I want to say to you is please keep up the content that you're doing on YouTube. Since I've been watching your content, I've learned so much, like I said to you in the beginning, that it is for the average guy, because a lot of the content I watched before watching your content made it look as if, at the end of the day, I'm going to have to mortgage or sell my house to be able to do what those guys are doing. And then watching your content turns it completely around and lets me realize that an average guy can do it. And the way you break down the finances, the discussion you had about diesel versus petrol, because that's a big argument in the industry. And when you explain that, you're going to find petrol more readily available than diesel. And that is a point of view that you don't often hear, because a lot of these guys are speaking about the technicalities, but they're not speaking based on experience. And you speaking based on experience. And that, I think, is more valuable than any technicalities or any book.
Oh, thanks very much. I appreciate that. And it's definitely what I'm trying to do, is just show people, here's what it really looks like when you do it, and here's what I learned along the way. And hopefully it's helpful to people.
It's very helpful. So thank you very much, Dan. I'm not going to keep you up. What I am going to do is I'm going to send you an off the beaten track sticker all the way to Canada. But I need you to, do you have stickers?
Yep, I do.
So you need to send me one sticker back. Thank you, Dan. Keep well, and I will be in touch with you.
Real pleasure to talk to you, man.
Same to you, and keep up the good work. We'll be waiting for the next trip all the way through Asia.
Sooner or later, it's coming.
Okay, keep well. Cheers. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks so much, man. Talk to you later.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.